Are you doing a job that you wish you could leave, but you can't get away from the comfort of a paycheck? Are you doing a time for money trade and you wish there was a better way? Well, we're going to talk about passive investing and how you're going to be able to leave your job in as short as 5 years. So stick around, it's going to be great. We're going to do it in 3 easy steps. All right, so step number 1, we're going to talk about identifying your freedom number and what that means. So in my past, I worked with a lot of physicians that made over $1 million a year. Some people made a ton of money. So you can see there was a time for money trade. They came in, they worked their hours, they worked with patients, they did procedures, but they were often working 60 to 80 hours a week. And to me, I would say that, this really is a time for money trade. A lot of people think of this and they only think about, oh, I get paid per hour, or I get paid when I go in and I do certain things. But if your business or your job requires that you're there, no matter how much money you make, you're really not financially free. And in my opinion, it's so important to look at this equation because the most important thing that we have is not our money, it really is our time. And if you start unpacking that, otherwise you'll start thinking that if time is not important to you, then you'll really be quick to give it away, and you don't realize how much your time is worth. So what's really more important than all of this, because let's say you get to a place where you've been able to leave your job. You're sitting on a beach somewhere and you're able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, total financial freedom. It sounds amazing, right? But at the end of it, it really comes down to what is your why? What's the reason that you're here on this earth? And sometimes, it is things like vacation and fun and just having freedom of time. And I think those things are great, but I believe the freedom of time gives us purpose to be able to pursue what it is we're here to do. So your why is very important. So I know what my why is, with the reason that I'm here to educate people, to educate busy professionals, also to help end human slavery in the world. That's a topic for another day, I'll get into it. But basically your why is so important because maybe it comes down to you writing that book you want to write. Maybe it comes down to travel. It comes down to working, spending more time with your family. Maybe you want to start that business that you want to start. And so when you're able to have freedom of time by having enough money, it allows you to be able to do those things. I've got a great video that talks about your why. We're going to put it up here so you can click on that video if you are interested in learning about discovering your why. So I want to talk about the freedom number because if there is such thing as a freedom number that basically allows you to become financially free. And a lot of people think of this, they're not quite sure exactly what this means. I'm going to explain what it means. A lot of people will, let's say, for example, you're in a job, and I'm just going to use these numbers. You may make more, you may make less, but these are examples. So maybe you make $200K a year, and yet you spend $200K. So there's this money comes in and money goes out. And what I would say with that is that you're not financially free if you're just simply bringing money in and you're having it go out. There's no sense of freedom when you are making the money and you're immediately spending it. Because what happens if you don't go to work? You don't make the money. If a business owner or a doctor or an attorney or CPA is not going to work, you're not getting paid. And so that's something that, to me, that's really not freedom. And so living in this equation, or even living in the other way, you spend 210 or you spend more than what you make, that's actually even the opposite of freedom. So what I want to do is say, if you were to say, take all your living expenses. Now, let's say you spend $5,000 a month on your house, you spend $1,000 on food, you spend a certain amount on insurance, you spend a certain amount on travel or food, or, clothes, these type of things. So I just came up with a number. So for a lot of people, you could say, okay, for $8K a month, I could live pretty comfortably. That comes close to about a 6-figure a year income. So in that case, that would basically be a freedom number, right? Because it would basically be able to cover your expenses. Now, a lot of people think, hey, I want to be somebody who does all these things and does everything all the time, is able to play now. And what my opinion is to not necessarily play now in every way, find things you can do to make the most of where you're at, but really find ways to invest for the future. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but before we get into the second step, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. If you consider subscribing, we'll send you some new content as soon as it's available, and we'll be right back with step number 2. All right, step number 2, commit to investing all you can. Now, a lot of people, we talk about investment returns, and I'm going to tell you that there are investments out there that you can get 15% return per year. And you say, Bronson, you're crazy. How can you be expecting that on a normal year, pretty much every year, you're going to get 15% annual return? And I'm going to tell you that one of my favorite investments is multifamily syndication. And the reason for it is because it has much higher returns than the stock market. The stock market, if you include the down years, you might be saying, hey, I'm already getting 15% in the stock market. Yeah, but what about the down years? What about when the stock market crashes? So when you count those down years, just historically, the stock market typically only returns about 6 to 8% per year. So if you get this number up to 15%, it can dramatically increase, the investment grows at a much, much higher rate. So multifamily syndication, I'm going to touch base on it now. I've got some other videos, a lot of other stuff about it. You can check that out. Basically, there's tax benefits. So you're going to pay less in taxes. You're going to be able to defer or write off completely some of those taxes. You're going to get higher returns. We talked about that. It's going to be lower risk. I have other videos that talk about, compared to other investments, it's lower volatility and lower risk. It also is an inflation hedge. I talk a lot about how much money is being printed these days and how you need to be in cash flowing assets that pay you to own them. And multifamily is that way. The government's shown that they will throw money at people to pay their rents, to make sure they can have housing. So that's some of the reasons I love this. I have a video I'm going to put a link to above about all the advantages of multifamily syndication. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend you go check that out now. So I'm going to go down and talk about this example. If you give me 5 years from now, you could be financially free to where you don't have to go do that job that maybe you've stopped enjoying, maybe you never enjoyed in the first place, but it requires that you pay attention and you really commit to action. So we're going to talk through how this will work. So in that example we mentioned before, let's say somebody makes $200,000. Okay, that's a lot of people listening will make that. Some people won't. But let's just, for example, let's say you make $200,000. You're able to save $70,000 after taxes. So that requires basically you save about half of the money that you make. You're paying some taxes on what you are making. Maybe you pay a little more taxes. But for our example, this is kind of what we're going to use. So 70K. You get a 15% return per year. And basically, if you're compounding this just by putting in 70K a year, getting 15%, and you're compounding it over 5 years, you're going to have $661,000. Again, if you compounded this, if you took the returns and you put them back into the deal and you continue to do that, it could be even higher. But $661,000, and basically that's going to give you a monthly revenue of about $8,200 a month, which is around $100,000 a year, which from the prior example from step one, we showed that that is your freedom number, right? The number that you say, hey, I have all my expenses covered, I can live comfortably enough, and I don't have to go to work, which is really amazing. So I just want you to think about that is possible. Now, there's a couple things that you need to really consider doing before this will happen. And it's very counterculture, and I want to talk about it. It's right over here. So when it comes to how much you make and how much you spend, it really is an equation, right? So if you save more than what you earn, then you're going to have net savings. If you spend more, then you're going to have less savings. So again, there's two parts of this equation. You could find a way to earn more. You could grow your business. You could work more hours. You could do things to earn more, which will allow you to even have more than that 70K or more than whatever your, the example is, to grow that more and more. The second way, which really is equally powerful, is to spend less. Now, this is not a common American message of spending less. As we consume everything, we want to buy more, we want to spend more, we want to finance everything, we want low, easy payments. It's not really that common. But I want to give an example. I talk a lot about Warren Buffett. I think he has a lot of great lessons to learn from. And one thing he said, actually, when he was younger, him and his wife were talking about buying some new furniture and him buying a couch. And he said, oh, I'm not willing to spend $500,000 on that. And she said, well, what do you mean, Warren? Like, it's a $500 couch. But he was compounding over the next 30 years that $500, getting a 25% return per year. He knew that would actually become $500,000, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because if you think of all the money that you have now in terms of what you could invest and the future value of that, it is really significant. So if you want to learn more about Warren Buffett, he's got some great wisdom. I did a little video about some of his investing tips. You can check it out up here. And let me know your thoughts on that. I want to know from you right now in the comments below, what is your favorite investment? Maybe it's multifamily, maybe it's something else. Stick it in the comments below. We'll be back with step number 3. Okay, so we're at step number 3, identifying great investments. So if you're following along and you're saying, you know what, I just don't know if I'm quite there, Bronson. I think you seem like a nice guy and you're really good looking, haha, but I think your head is in the clouds. I just think that you don't really understand. I mean, this idea of 15% returns per year, it just sounds really risky, and it just sounds like you're just kind of pulling, like, I just don't see that. I've never seen that. That sounds crazy. And you know, I felt the same way until I met full-time passive investors. They've been doing this for 10 plus years, and they had done what I'm talking about, where they had been able to retire through passive income. So I want you to just, again, have an open mind. Now, your question is, well, where? Why am I not hearing about these deals? Where are these great deals that you're talking about? And I have this video I put together that talks some specifics about how you can find great deals. So you can check that out up above. You can go there. It's going to give you some great information. I'm going to touch on it right now as well, though. So a great way to find out about it is to hang out with stick people. No, it's actually to go to networking events, to go to events that are live events. I know for those that have been in places where COVID's been really tight, such as California, those are just kind of getting going. And again, whenever you watch this video, who knows what will be happening, but getting around other people is so powerful. I think I've been to Texas. This is, you know, at the time of this video, I've been to Texas 5 times this year. I'm actually going tomorrow for another event. And these events are amazing because you meet people that are passive investors. This is what they do, and you can talk with them. Who do you like? Who have you had a good experience with? Who have you had a bad experience with? What are the good operators? What are the bad operators? What types of investments do you like? And you get to learn. So it's this networking, and there's an educational component that kind of comes out when you go to these events. So highly recommend you look into that. There's also other ways. You know, some of you are podcast junkies. You're on YouTube. You're obviously watching, hearing about this. You can go on Google, and I would just say continue the networking, the getting the information. You can find out about more deals, and the more deals you look at, the more you identify, okay, what really is a good deal and who is a good operator, because there's a lot of people doing deals. Not everyone is going to be somebody that you necessarily would want to invest with. So that's kind of how you do it. I give a little caveat here. I'm not a big fan of crowdfunding because I feel it's a little bit impersonal. There could be, instead of, you know, maybe a couple dozen investors in a deal, there could be hundreds in a deal. The emphasis really is on raising the money and getting the funding, and not necessarily on service. So if you have questions, you may not be able to get them answered at all. It, to me, feels more like a REIT or other sorts of you know, financial assets that are much less personal than multifamily syndication, which I love. So maybe you're still saying, hey, wait, what's going on here? I just give me some more information. Like I've learned about, you know, Wall Street, and everybody does Wall Street. What's the big deal? Well, I will say this about Wall Street. Part of my story is I was an investment advisor for a number of years, and I just saw all these hidden fees that were there. I saw the ways that, you know, kind of behind the curtain, if you will, of just how people really were not treated well, and people don't even realize that they're being cheated. And again, I've got a video about that, about why I left being an investment advisor. You can check that video out here. Highly recommend it because it really shaped the way that I look at investing, the way I look at helping people, and really gives me the passion to do videos like this. So I wanted to say this to you as well. We talked a lot about savings over spending, you know, really making those investment goals. But for you, this could be just another video, or it could be you actually making a decision saying, I want to change my financial future. I want to live differently. And so Tony Robbins has this quote. He said, it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And you'd say, well, that sounds like a really deep quote, Bronson. We're just talking about money and investing. I'd say, no, I'd say it's that important to figure out your purpose, what you're here to do, to become financially free so that you can go pursue that. Really, really important. So just for a minute, I want you to imagine your life where you know that you have enough money coming in to where you don't have to go to work. You've got enough passive income coming in, and you basically are a place where you're financially free and you have a choice. What would your life look like? And I want you to keep that in mind, and let me know your thoughts, and put it in the message below what your life would look like. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.